Don't we all have that one friend who seems to know an insufferable amount about a bunch of random topics? That one friend who chimes in with the odd and sometimes incredibly disturbing little snippet of knowledge out of nowhere? Hi, my name is Carly, and if you don't already have that friend, congratulations. Now you do. I delight in researching anything and everything that piques my curiosity in the least bit. And as my husband has pointed out, we carry a mini supercomputer in our pockets every single day. So anytime I have the slightest curiosity about any given thing, from how wine gets its price to the difference between a Yeti and a Wendigo, I just look it up. Welcome to I'm Already Looking It Up. Let's sit down, relax, maybe have a drink or two, and learn a few things. Hello. You are listening to I Am Already Looking It Up, the podcast where I, your host, research a random topic and tell you, my lovely listeners, all about it. So without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so technically spooky season ended 2 days ago, but in my heart, it is always spooky season, and I'm also just so far behind on podcasts, episodes. I wanted to be able to still talk about the spooky things I wanted to talk about over October. Over October, haha, it rhymes. Anyway, so we're gonna start with scary movies. And my favorite all-time scary movie is Scream. And now, you could argue, but Carly, that's not a scary movie. And you're kind of right. It's really not that scary. But I'm not going to lie, love that movie. Still do, to this day. It's just a fantastic film. And the sequels, also fantastic films. I haven't seen 5 or 6, but I want to see both. So I need to do that, which I might do tonight while I'm watching scary movies with my husband. So, anyway, when you're watching a scary movie, in my mind, there is nothing more frightening than when the movie opens and upon the screen you see based on a true story. And I love that shit. And it also scares the crap out of me. When they did it in Paranormal Activity, I was like, oh, nope, no thank you. So I wanted to talk a bit about Scream, because at one point in my life I had very much heard that it was, in fact, based on a true story, even though it doesn't say that in the movie anywhere. And that is because it's based on a true story in the same vein that, I don't know, Psycho or Hannibal or the Texas Chainsaw Massacre are all based on a true story, and that they are based on a real-life serial killer, and all 3 of those movies are based on the same real-life serial killer, Ed Gein, which is just a horrific case if you've never heard anything about it, though I doubt you haven't, because it's very, very well known. But obviously they made 3 fake movies about it and so many other things. So anyway, I'm trying to think. So I found out that Scream was based on a true story, or true events that happened, and I was like, we're gonna look into this. So I found a couple articles on it. We're gonna talk about it. I am gonna have another episode later on that's gonna be about other spooky movies based on true stories. But this one is just Scream, because this is for me. I cannot explain to you how much I love this movie. In fact, I went shopping with my husband yesterday, and there was just so much Ghostface stuff everywhere, and I just wanted all of it because I love Ghostface so much. So, here is an article from Pop Sugar Entertainment about Scream being based on real-life events. So the article is titled "The Nightmarish String of Real-Life Murders That Inspired Wes Craven's Scream" by Quinn Keeney. And this was posted on March 10th, 2023. So about a year. Way more than a year ago, but, we're getting there. Anyway, warning, the following story contains graphic details concerning a real life murder case. So we're gonna just kind of dive on in here, and we'll see how much this article covers. Then I have another one that I kind of scanned. I don't know. I have to kind of think about what is in that one and in this one. So here we go. Scream is easily one of the best, if not the best, slasher movies of all time. Agreed. Wes Craven's 1996 horror flick cuts the perfect balance between gory scares and black comedy, and the franchise solidified a young Neve Campbell's status as the reigning Scream Queen of the 90s. The film has spawned 5 sequels so far, and Scream 6, which hits theaters in March 10th of 2023, that's why it came out around that time, features a fresh cast of young victims tasked with... I got to scroll. Why are you not scrolling? Okay. Listen, PDF reader, I just want to go to the next page. Oh, okay, here we go. Alright, fending off Ghostface. While the mass murderers who terrorize the unlucky characters in the Scream franchise are fictional, there's another even more disturbing layer to the story that has roots in reality. Scream was inspired by a rash of real-life murders committed by a serial killer in Gainesville, Florida. Could not talk there for a minute. Danny Rolling wasn't from the tight-knit Florida college town, but he left a lasting mark on the community that was felt long after he was imprisoned. He grew up in Shreveport, LA, where, per the Tampa Bay Times, he had a rough upbringing that resulted in several physical clashes with his father, a police officer, and he was arrested multiple times over the years for robberies in Georgia and spying on a cheerleader who was getting undressed. "That's lovely. You sound like a great person," she said sarcastically. His troubled early life eventually culminated in an attempt to kill his father after an argument in May of 1990. His father survived the 2 gunshots to his head, but lost an eye and an ear. In August of that same year, Rolling made his way to Gainesville just as the University of Florida was beginning its fall semester. That's across the country, quite literally. You're going coast to coast there, my dude. There he began a spree of burglaries in low-cost apartment buildings off campus, which led to the savage fatal stabbings of 5 students, one from Santa Fe College and the rest from the University of Florida. He began his spree in the very early morning hours of August 24th by breaking into the apartment of 17-year-old freshmen Sonia Larson and Christina Powell, who were both asleep. Per NBC News, he proceeded to tape each of their mouths shut before stabbing them to death. He also, I don't like using that word, so, had some non-consensual relations with Christina Powell and stabbed her repeatedly in the back, and then left their bodies in sexually provocative positions. On August 25th, Rolling pried open a sliding glass door of 18-year-old Krista Hoyt's apartment with a knife and screwdriver. She wasn't home during the break-in, so he waited in her living room until she returned. He managed to surprise her from behind, subduing her with a chokehold and taping her mouth shut. Just like with Powell, he did the non-consensual with Hoyt and killed her by stabbing her several times in the back. Then he decapitated her body and left the head on a shelf in the living room to heighten the shock for whoever found her body. That is fucked, man. Hoyt, Powell, and Larson's murders attracted intense media coverage, as one would, from all over the country, and had students at University of Florida sleeping with steak knives under their pillows, according to the Associated Press. Although many students began taking precautions and scores of them transferred schools, 23-year-old Tracy Pauls and Manny Taboada were Rolling's next victims. The serial killer used the same method to pry open the sliding glass door in their apartment, killing Taboada first after a struggle. Pauls heard the commotion down the hall and attempted to barricade her bedroom door, but Rolling was able to get inside. He taped her mouth and wrists before doing the same with the other two victims, stabbing her in the back and posing her body. Excluding Taboada, who was a large man, all the victims were slim Caucasian brunettes with brown eyes. The town's law enforcement, desperate to find a suspect, initially named 18-year-old student Edward Lee Humphrey as their man. He had recently been arrested for beating up his grandmother and had previously lived in Paul's and Taboada's apartment complex. Although Humphrey didn't fit the crimes exactly, the murders came to a halt as soon as he was taken into custody. On top of the link to one of the suspects and his history of violence, the police were convinced they'd found the true killer. They thought they'd got their man. At the same time, however, Rolling had been arrested on a burglary charge in the nearby town of Ocala? I hope I said that right. A hotline call from a woman named Cindy Jurachich, who had known Rolling from her hometown church and recalled that he had told her husband he liked to stick knives in people, led police to look at him a little more closely. During that investigation, the police realized that the tools Rolling used to pull off burglary left the exact same marks as the ones at the murder scenes in Gainesville. They also discovered that he'd been staying at a campsite in a wooded area close to the apartment complexes where the victims lived. By November 1991, he'd been charged with the murders, and in 1994, before his trial could even begin, Rolling shocked everyone by pleading guilty to all charges. As if that weren't creepy enough, Rolling later claimed that he had been coerced into committing the horrific acts by a demon named Gemini. And he detailed his demonic encounters in a book he co-wrote with his then-fiancée, Sandra London. According to CBS News, Rolling was executed by lethal injection in October of 2006 at Florida State Prison. The screenplay for Scream was later dreamed up by Kevin Williamson, a North Carolina transplant? Okay. Living in LA and trying to make it big as an actor. With his acting career in a standstill, Williamson took a job house-sitting for someone in the upscale neighborhood of Westwood for a few days. It was there, all alone in a huge house, that he watched a newscast about a string of killings that rocked Gainesville to its core. Immediately, he started imagining what would happen if a killer wielded the same knife that Rolling used to gut his victims like a fish, as Ghostface would say. My boy. I was watching this this quote from, I'm assuming, from the man that we were just discussing. I was watching this Barbara Walters specials on the Gainesville, Florida murders, and I was getting so spooked. I was being scared out of my mind. During the commercial break, I heard a noise. I had to go search the house, and I called a buddy of mine. Williamson recalled during a 1998 interview with CNN. I went to bed that night so spooked I was having nightmares, and I woke up at like 3 or 4 in the morning, and I started writing the opening scene to Scream. Fantastic. The events have since been dramatized in several documentaries, including Tubi's Lights, Camera, Murder, Scream, and Discovery Plus feature Scream, The True Story, which follows paranormal investigators Steve Shippey and Cindy Kaza as they try to investigate the demon that Rolling claimed was possessing him. Ultimately, one thing is clear. We'll never be able to look at Drew Barrymore's gruesomely iconic exit the same way ever again. Now, that's kind of awful. I mean, that, I mean, it is more than kind of awful, but that is just, I didn't know, I honestly have never heard of this case, which is surprising because I listen to, like, all the true crime that I can. So that's crazy. I had never heard of that before, and the fact that it's connected to one of my favorite scary movies of all time is just insane. So, like I said, I do have another article. I don't know that it really is much different. This one was published October 31st in 2022, so on Halloween, yay. Literally almost 2 years ago. So, this one, modern horror movie making changed forever in December of 1996 when Scream burst onto the scene as a brand new type of self-aware slasher. But did you know the iconic horror flick was inspired by a real-life serial killer? Okay, so yeah, we do have kind of talking about what was going on. Rowling murdered 8 people, 4 of the students at the University of Florida. He was also known to spy on women in their own homes. Go back up. I should have zoomed in. Lights, Camera, Murder, Scream lays out Rowling's story while exploring which aspects of his life made it into the film. So whether you're a true crime aficionado or a horror movie buff, there's something here for you. I should maybe put that on my list of documentaries to watch. I want to zoom, please. Nope, just zoom. Zoom? No? All right. Cool. Williamson, as we learned from the last little thing there, that this is the screenwriter, learned about Rowling's horrific story via a documentary, and that's not true. He didn't learn about it via a documentary. He learned about it from the news. Though could provide a strong jumping-off point for a slasher story. The fear of being watched inspired arguably the most iconic scene in the Scream franchise, the opening prologue where Drew Barrymore's Casey Becker chats with Ghostface over the phone as he watches her from afar. Which I don't know, I always had loved the scary stories that were like, you know, the call is coming from inside, because that's what always, like, scared me. It's just that, like, someone is watching you from afar, and I have that. I mean, we've talked about my Bigfoot fear, so, like, we know that exists, the fear itself. I think Bigfoot exists, but, you know, that's besides the point. But yeah, it's very much the call is coming from inside the house type of story, or just the idea that you could be talking to someone on the phone and they know exactly what you're doing because they're watching you through your windows and they're gonna come and get you, and there's really not a lot you can do. And that's terrifying to me, because that is so viscerally, like, that is a real feeling. So, and I know, like, I know a lot of people probably know that, but it's just such an interesting genre of horror, and also just the fact that I love horror that preys on those very primal type fears, where it's not like, yes, okay, spiders be scary, demons be scary, ghosts be scary, but, like, serial killers and, you know, all of that stuff, that is all terrifying to me, because that's so real. And I don't know, it's so much, and you know, the world is crazy, lots of crazy shit is real. Heck, I was listening to one of my podcasts today that talked about a couple crimes that I was like, oh damn, I could have never, that's crazy, like, that's insane. So, anyway, I love horror movies like that, and Scream is probably the reason I love horror movies like that, because I've always loved that. Williamson wanted to flip the script of the helpless female victim and created the character of Sydney Prescott, one of the most empowered final girls in the horror movie genre. We love Sydney. She's in every Scream movie. Sydney's great. Across its 84-minute runtime, Lights, Camera, Murder, Scream explores the psychology that drove Rawlings, as well as how Williams summoned director Wes Craven, changed and adapted elements of his story for Scream. For instance, during Rawlings' trial, his defense claimed that he didn't know the difference between movies and reality and was driven to kill after watching The Exorcist 3, a factoid that helped fuel the meta nature of Scream. And now, as we all know, if you've seen Scream, you know Scream defines the rules of the horror movie. Now, it doesn't set up the rules of the horror movie, because we know that Halloween existed before Scream did. Nightmare on Elm Street existed before Scream did. But let's examine the rules via, what is that dude's name? I was so sad with the second movie. Hold on, I have to look up his name because I didn't even think about doing this in this episode, but this is fun. Scream, let's see, scary movie. Nope. Scary movie rules. Hello? I feel like I just heard a voice. I really hope it's my husband getting home. That scared the shit out of me. Okay. Live on camera. Alright. Not on camera. On recording. Okay, so we have, what is his name? He's the guy who's part of, like, he loves scary movies. He works at, like, Blockbuster, I think, or whatever their video rental place is. Dang it, what is his name? Randy! His name is Randy. We love Randy. Okay, so Randy defines the rules for surviving a horror movie, such as never have sex, because the couple who goes off and has sex is most likely going to get killed during, before, or after. I don't remember the exact quote for that. I should, because it is one of my favorite movies, but that's the way the brain works. Never drink or do drugs, because if you're the one who's drunk, or too high, you're gonna be the one who probably gets stabbed. And then never say, "I'll be right back." Now, the funniest thing about this is, in the Scream movies, especially the first one, I'd have to watch the rest again, because I've only seen the rest of them a handful of times, whereas I've seen the first one a bunch of times. But I know in the first one it's so funny, because all of these things happen. All of these things are something that the characters do, and most of them who do some of these things survive. So, like, Randy here, who's talking about the whole thing, is that he is drinking, because it's a party that he's at, and he's explaining this to all the partygoers. So he's drinking, and he gets kind of drunk. And then there's Sydney, who we mentioned before is the main character of the story, the survivor girl, if you will. She does have sex with her boyfriend, the guy who ends up also being one of the killers. And that's another thing about Scream, is anybody can be Ghostface. Anybody can be Ghostface. And then never say, "I'll be right back." And that one doesn't really get broken technically, but the guy who does break it does not technically return to where he says, "I'll be right back" from. He says he's going to go get some more drinks, and yeah, that's, he also ends up played by Matthew Lillard, who we love. And I also want to say, spoilers, I mean, if you've never seen Scream, I don't know why you're listening to this. I maybe should have said at the top, I will spoil this movie for you. But if you've never seen it, it's still a great movie. It doesn't really matter who ends up being the killer. Even when you know who the killer is, it's just a great movie to watch. And so the two who end up being the killers are actually break two of these rules, technically. So that's kind of interesting. But that's it, it's funny that they outline these like rules and they get broken, and the people who break them still technically are survived. Anyway, so across this 84-minute runtime, Lights, Camera, Murder, Scream explores the psychology that drove Rawlings, as well as how Williamson and director Wes Craven changed and adapted elements of the story from Scream. For instance, during Rawlings' trial, his defense claimed that he didn't know the difference between movies and reality and was driven to kill after watching The Exorcist 3, a factoid that helped fuel the meta nature of Scream. So yeah, that's where I was saying, like, Scream is very meta. It's like, oh, this is definitely a spooky, like, we're in a slasher film, ha ha ha, until you die, and then it's not ha 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 anymore. In fact, I think there is a slasher movie that is popular in Scream. It's not an actual movie, but there's a slasher movie that everyone loves that's in Scream. And it's very similar to Scream, which is so funny. If you'd like to celebrate the peak spooky season with a documentary that examines both fact and fiction, you can find Lights, Camera, Action, Murder, Scream streaming from free on Tubi. And that is all there is to say about that. That might be one of my scary movie picks for tonight, as me and my husband are planning on sitting down and watching some spooky stuff. Even though, like I said, spooky season is technically over for us, but it's never over in my heart, and my birthday was last week, so obviously, like, I'm still technically celebrating my spookiness. But yeah, so, I mean, there's not much more to say about the whole situation. When I looked this up and found out it was, in fact, based on a scary movie, I thought that was cool. I was like, hey, like, or not based on a scary movie, based on a true story, which, again, it's kind of like that thing where, you see that in a movie, and it is a little bit scary to see that, because you're like, oh, shit, like, this maybe happened, but then it's so dramatized, like, obviously, you can see the, where the Scream and all that plays into that the case of Rawlings and the murders he committed, but it's also not exactly the same. This was definitely a deranged man who grew up in a very troublesome world, probably needed a lot of mental health help and didn't get it, because we're so terrible at that. We're getting better, but it's not great. And yeah, it's sad. Rest in peace, to his victims. It's really cool that out of his story, though, we get this really fun, trope of the survivor girl, which is not, I mean, it doesn't come from Scream, but Sidney Prescott, she is a badass survivor girl. We love her. So, anyway, ooh, okay. Anyway, I think that's where I'm going to leave it for today. Not a very long episode, but again, it's just spooky season. I just wanted to talk about my my favorite scary movie, and I definitely need to. Yeah, I have an idea for a tumbler / wine glass / mug that is Scream themed, and that just made me think of it. But if you ask me what my favorite scary movie is, it's Scream. It's Scream, 100%. We love Scream. So anyway, I think that's where we're going to leave it for today. Thank you for taking the time to listen today, and if you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, like, and share it. Really helps me out. And yeah, you can check me out on all the socials. I have them all listed in the end here, and I'll put them in the description. I also just want to say that if you have any topic suggestions, ideas, anything like that, feel free to throw them my way. I'm always up for just some interesting discussions or research or anything you want to throw at me. So, yeah, once again, thanks Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to I'm Already Looking It Up. This show is written, directed, edited, and produced all by me, Carly Kaufman. To show your support, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts, like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You can also check out at Wild Forest Productions on Patreon, Tumblr, and Instagram, and Facebook. To find other ways to support the creator, check out at Impress Wild on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter /X, Facebook, TikTok, and also Instagram. And if you have any topic suggestions, feel free to throw them my way. Can't wait to see you in the next episode. Until then.